Whew, I am not going back outside again until at least spring, but I'll need some classic video games. Okay, I'm all set to play some vintage games. With the weather we've been having, I'd really like to be on an island right about now. Like Myst. Yeah, let's play Myst. Let's see, it should be in here somewhere. Windows 98, Windows NT. I'm starting to see a pattern here. This is my PC binder. All right, I gotta find my Macintosh binder. It's gotta be somewhere. Okay, the game I'm looking for is somewhere in this box. It could also be in the other 10 boxes I got in my garage that look exactly like it. I need a better system to file these all the way in. A file system. A network file system. Network area storage. A vintage network area storage that all my vintage computers can use. That's exactly what I need. Let's get started. I have my vintage NAS here, and I'm going to throw it inside my server rack so I can put it on the network. Ooh, I am fresh out of room, so let me just set this on the floor for now. Now, those of you with a keen eye may see that I already have a NAS in place. It's got all the bells and whistles of a modern NAS, so why would I want to put a vintage NAS on my network? Well, with all those bells and whistles also come new security standards and updates that will not talk to our older machines. The G4 I have, however, with Mac OS X server, will talk to everything that I need on my network that uses the older standards as far as late 90s, early 2000s computers. So that's what I'm going for today. As much as I love this NAS, I'm just going to close it up now and I'm going to show you how I built this new NAS on the desk. So let's go. Here we have the PowerMac G4. It's a PowerMac 3,1. It has a 400 megahertz processor. This current config has 1 gig of RAM, and it's only got a 100 megabit network. So I'm going to have a few upgrades that will make it a lot faster. All of this is fairly cheap. I've been able to find this on Facebook Marketplace for as little as $25 to $50. eBay has them anywhere from $25 to $100, but you can probably find this locally pretty cheap. So that right there is a good incentive to build a NAS if you need a vintage NAS in a machine like this, because it's going to be on the cheap. I do have a gigabit network card. I got this on eBay. I got 2 of them for $20. So that right there is a steal. That's $10. I'm going to be using a SATA hard drive. This one has the older style power connector, so I don't have to connect it with a SATA power connector. I don't have the adapter. I do, but I don't feel like digging it out wherever it is. I've got the same problem with cables that I have with software. They're everywhere. And I have this little thing I got for about $20 on Amazon, and Action Retro has a great video about flashing this for the Mac, and I'll link that below. Everything here, like I said, is on the cheap. Total, we're still under about $100 for this entire project. So if you want to build yourself a reliable vintage NAS, this is the one to do it in. I wouldn't get the Mirador drive because they tend to have bad power supplies, and that's another project for another day. So let's go ahead and show you the inside of this thing. I have more RAM that I could upgrade. Once again, not digging it out. This is fine for the project. It has 1 gig, 400 megahertz processor. I did upgrade the video card. This came out of a PowerMac G4 Mirador drive only because the monitor I'm going to be connecting this with couldn't be driven with the basic video card that was in this thing prior. So let's get started. Let's put the NIC in here, network interface card, and that can just slide in real easy. Like that. Take this one out. I've already loosened the screws, so just make everything easy. Now, the SATA adapter, I want to connect closer to the hard drive bay just so my SATA cable doesn't have to be routed all around other cards. And I still have one more PCI opening if I wanted to put something else in there. So as of now, the most expensive part of this whole build is my screwdriver. We're going to slide the hard drive right in place. Now, if you're doing this for your home NAS that you'd want a little faster speeds, you could put an SSD in here. I'm just going to use the original hard drive for now, just for illustration purposes. Now, the hardest part about all this is just cable routing. It's not very difficult. Going to take your SATA cable, plug that in. Now, I made a little pigtail here so that when the door goes up, I'm not crimping the cable where it doesn't need to be crimped. And that's it. That was a very easy install, couple minutes total. Gonna shut the door. Nice and secure. And I'm gonna do a quick cutscene and have a monitor and keyboard in place. Okay, so I just powered it on. I'm gonna hold down the Option key, and we should see the screen pop up any second here now. Now, it might take a second for everything to be seen, so I'm gonna jump cut this until we see what's available. So as you can see here, the install DVD is showing up. So I'm gonna click on that and then click the next arrow. And I'm gonna zoom in on the screen on the next steps here. So I'm gonna step out of frame and you'll just see the monitor. So that way you get a better view. I would also recommend when you're doing this is to have a cup of coffee, but keep it away from the keyboard. You're going to want to pick the language that works for you. Obviously, I'm going to choose English. And you're going to want to go up to Utilities and Disk Utilities so that you can format the drives so that you have a clean, fresh start. The two drives I have in here are a 75 gig Western Digital Raptor hard drive that is SATA, shows up as 69.2 formatted, and a 20 gig IDE hard drive. So I'm going to use the IDE hard drive as our boot drive, and the SATA drive will be our data drive. As you can see, I had this in another Mac, so I'm just going to wipe that and we'll be good. And then erase our boot drive. And that's all you have to do for that step. So you exit this and you go back to the installer. Click through, agree to everything, and there are the two drives. So I'm going to want to install on the Macintosh hard drive. And I'm going to jump cut this so that the next step you see is the initial setup. Here we are after the install. It's going to ask you a couple things. Some things are standard. There's one thing that's a little different than most OS X installs. So continue. It's going to ask keyboard. And right here, it asks for a serial number. Now, I've seen this as cheap as $15 on eBay if you wanted to get a legit physical copy. I did also get this off of the Internet Archive. They do have a copy and they do have a serial number that's listed. You choose what you want to do. Now you're going to create an admin account. Going to name this G4 NAS. It asks you what network you want to install. I'm going to also install AppleTalk, just for some of my older computers. I'm going to be using DHCP. It's going to be a standalone server. And this is where you check what services you want it to use. So I'm going to choose Apple File Service, Apple Remote Desktop, FTP. You don't really need any of these others because they are now obsolete and unusable. Now, somebody might be able to figure it out, but I'm not putting the time into it. QuickTime streaming service you might use if you have like an old iPad and you want to stream something on your local network. A Windows file service if you have Windows computers on your network, like I do. Choose your time zone. And I'm going to use a network time server. If everything looks correct, go ahead and hit apply. And it's going to configure your server. Now that the initial installation is complete, now we can go ahead and log in. At first glance, it looks very similar to the consumer side of OS X. However, at the bottom of the dock here, you're going to see Server Admin, Workgroup Manager, And Server Monitor has a few other apps that you would not normally see on a consumer side Mac OS X. After logging in, you're going to see a few differences than you would with your normal consumer side Mac OS X. Mac OS X Server has a few other apps like Server Admin, Workgroup Manager, and Server Monitor that you would normally not see on a Mac in place of things like iTunes or iMovie. You're going to use these apps to set up your network, add users, and set permissions for everyone on your network. When you open Workgroup Manager, it's going to ask for you to log in. Now, you can save this to your keychain if you don't plan on sharing this with anybody and it's just you setting it up. It's going to give you a warning that you're working on a directory node that is not visible to the network. Basically, this is a standalone server, so you really don't have to worry about that. Just going to ignore that little message right there. You can click New User. And let's just put another account for myself here. You have your user ID. I'm going to use password as my password, just for illustration purposes only. You want to check the other tabs here if there's anything else you want to add. You want to choose where your home folder is. I'm going to say users, and we're going to save that. I'm going to go ahead and set data hard drive as our main SharePoint. Share this item in all the contents. I'm going to give read and write across the board here. Because it's on my personal network and I'm not worried about other people gaining access to this. It is only going to be on when I'm using it. That's the other thing. You don't need these servers to be on 24/7 because how often do you actually use your vintage hardware? Some of us would love to do it all the time, but typically, a weekend here or there, a little bit in the evening, you're not running this thing 24/7, and you don't need to, so you can kind of be lax on the permissions if you have it up at random times, and it is on your own personal network. Now, a side note of that, if you are concerned about privacy, I wouldn't save any personal information on here. This is more for downloading games to one source, old CD images, stuff like that. Any banking stuff or personal information that you don't want just in an insecure area, you should keep that on a more up-to-date modern computer that's well encrypted. Now clicking on the admin tab, it will open up our next app here, which is Server Admin. It's going to ask you for the password again and hit connect. Now the services that we chose at install are going to show up here: Apple File Protocol, File Transfer Protocol, and Windows. So if you want to add anything else, you can always just go ahead and configure it from here and start the service. Now one more thing I want to do is I want to do a software update. That has not been done yet on this, and it's something that you really should do after any vintage install, is you want to get everything as up to date as possible. It fixes bugs, it fixes security flaws. So right now this is vanilla install right after 10.4. There's no 10.4.1 or anything after that. So these updates are going to be pretty critical for working out any bugs or kinks that you might have, and it's really just overall a good practice to do even on your newer computers. Okay, so there's the combined update to 10.4.11. Java DVD player, not really going to use that on this, so it's more of a server, so I don't need it for that, but I'm going to install everything. So after running all the updates, I've got the G4 sitting on the side of the desk here headless. Headless meaning that there's no monitor attached. The great thing about that is I can put it under my desk, I can put it in a closet, I can put it in my garage. As long as it's got proper air ventilation, it'll run just fine. Now, I do have a Windows 2000 PC, and I've got a Mac Pismo running Mac OS 9.2. I also have my new laptop running Windows 11 that's going to connect to my NAS downstairs that's running TrueNAS, both modern systems. So I'm going to copy a file from here onto this G4, and you're going to see it show up here. I might have to refresh, but we'll get to that when I get to that. So let's get started. So one thing I did forget to mention is that when I was testing all this out, all my Macintosh computers, my M1 Mac Mini, my MacBook, connected just fine to this. I didn't have to do any workarounds. Now, my Windows 11 PC didn't like the SMB protocol that this older Mac is using. So what it does like is FTP. So I downloaded FileZilla and got that installed, and that connects just fine. So you're not going to necessarily drag and drop like you would in Windows, but if you know how to do this much, you should be able to use FTP just fine. So I'm copying the game over from my modern NAS through this laptop to the G4. It's taking about 2 minutes to transfer 500 meg through Wi-Fi over the network, so that's not too bad. The transfer rate is showing 4.6 megabit a second, so that's pretty good considering I'm going over Wi-Fi, it's going through a NAS. It's basically 3 computers talking to each other all at once to get the data to that computer right there. Okay, the transfer just finished, so I am done with the modern laptop. I can put it away. So let's take a look at this one here. It did go to sleep, or almost went to sleep. And yeah, the file has shown up, the folder has shown up. Open that up, and it is a toast file. I luckily do have Toast installed. Just going to drag and drop that to the desktop. And over the 100 megabit network that this is connected to, it says about 2 minutes. So it's not bad considering if I had to do this over a USB 1 thumb drive, that would take forever on this old thing. Not everyone has, FireWire hard drives lying around. So for $100 basically, this is a decent setup. So as that's copying over, I'm going to take a look at the PC, and yes, Miss has also shown up there. So it's about to finish here. It said 2 minutes at the beginning. It's been closer to 5 minutes. So it's probably the fact that this is an old slow hard drive. The computer probably thought it was only going to take 2 minutes, or reasonably close to that. But yeah, here we are. Looks like it's about to finish. There we go. So that was pretty quick considering the alternatives. Now let's see if the PC is any quicker. The PC does have an SSD in it, so don't mind my reach. Now, I am not going to be able to run this on the PC because it is a PowerPC application. I am just transferring files to see how fast it can go. Oh, this is much quicker on the PC. They're both 100 megabit connections. It's just that this has an SSD. That's entirely the reason why it's going so much faster. Yeah, it's said a minute in the beginning, and it's actually a minute because it's already said 45 seconds. So we'll let that complete, and we'll go to the next step. So just what is the next step? Well, playing Myst, of course. Big thanks to everyone that's been tuning in. The last video I did really picked up steam, and I'm starting to get excited for the channel. Thank you to all my new subscribers. Thank you to everyone that's been tuning in, all the comments. Everything has been very positive so far, and I hope I can keep entertaining you guys. Once again, thank you. Like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. It really helps the channel, and it helps the algorithm for YouTube. So once again, thank you. Take care of yourselves, and I will be coming back with more videos as fast as I can. It takes a lot of time sometimes to do some of this stuff. I'm trying to make it look easy. I do run into some snags, so thank you very much. I did promise a battery video for this thing. I am still going to do that. We got a cold snap here, and it is way too cold in my garage to be doing anything with batteries or anything at all for that matter. So soon. I'll do that, I promise. Thank you again. Take care.